Hey all, PyroDrake here. Back when I uploaded my OAnalysis video for the first Season 2 episode, Angel of Death, I had gotten tired of fighting with Netflix over what constitutes fair use, so I kinda gave up for a time. With a recent rewatch of the OA, I decided I wasn't going to give up on everything just yet. This will be a re-upload of my Angel of Death OAnalysis video, cutting out the episode recap, save for a few short clips, and my end video analysis. If I can keep this video from getting taken down, I'll move forward with the rest of the season, and with my after-show thoughts. Enjoy! Hey y'all, PyroDrake here, back with the OAnalysis for Part 2, Episode 1, titled Angel of Death. Angel of Death focuses on two characters, OA, and a new character, Kareem. Let's go over his side of things first. As they go, the cameraman catches a glimpse of something.
Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
I was...
Look again.
Huh. I guess he shouldn't have looked again then, huh? When Kareem asks why she didn't go to the cops, she makes an interesting claim.
She says her granddaughter, Michelle, is invisible.
It doesn't give much as far as a location is concerned, but she definitely gives hints that there's something bigger going on.
Grandma, I want to come home, but I'm afraid that's not possible. I am strong. I am your hope.
After having Donald unlock it for him, he's greeted with a very Matrix-esque animation of a door opening before getting tackled by a crazy guy with purple hair who bites him before grabbing Michelle's phone. Kareem sets out to solve the mystery of the Matrix door by going to a weightlifting club that has a DJ that blasts techno and houses gamers? Is this a commonplace thing in California and I'm just out of the loop, or what? He arrives at another house in disrepair, so far a running theme this season. Finally, she tells Kareem that in order to find out what happened to her,
well, then you need to go where she went.
With that puzzle out of the way, the next clue
Three wise men?
is where Fola is currently at. Once she's sure he's not part of some corporate espionage plot, she drops a name on him, Pierre Ruskin.
Is that Ruskin, the rideshare guy?
More like the holy prophet of the valley.
Kareem follows Pierre to a sugar factory entrance that has the sign that says Curie and has a picture we saw earlier in Michelle's sleeping space at the house. After a bit of poking around, Kareem finds himself in a room with Pierre and four other people watching computer screens of keywords and audio logs. Once over the target room, he opens the vent to find a circle of occupied beds with people in lab coats walking around them taking notes, while some kind of computer sits in the middle, presumably logging everything. Jumping back a bit to just after Kareem and Fola were talking on the stairs, and presumably about 7.5 hours after Michelle's grandmother knocked on Kareem's door, we get a scene of a man sitting in the back of a restaurant before getting a call and speaking in Russian to Nina, a familiar voice with an unfamiliar accent. Suddenly, she drops her purse and keys, grabs her chest, and falls to the ground, breaking the right lens of her sunglasses. In a flash, we go from outside to in a tunnel, as we focus on emotionless Nina a moment later, and who the current president is.
Barack Obama.
The nurse looks quizzically and pulls the curtain back to reveal a news report of President Biden addressing veterans. I wonder if the hospital plays that on all their TVs on loop for this reveal if someone just so happens to answer incorrectly. As OA cries out, we get another amazing shot to overlay the Part 2's opening credits. An overview shot of the planet Earth as seen from space. OA has the nurses tell him that she needs time and that she doesn't want him to see her like this. And Pierre takes it badly. They give her two options. She can stay in that hospital, or she can voluntarily commit herself to a private clinic on Treasure Island for the 14 days. I think it'd be right about there where I'd demand to speak to a lawyer before signing or agreeing to anything. With no other recourse, however, OA agrees to the 2-week stay at the clinic. Alone for probably the first time since she arrived, OA continues to piece together the difference between Prairie and Nina and comes away with just one very important difference. The NDE Prairie suffered as a child. Her door is unlocked and opened, and we see only OA's reaction. Finally!
Call me Dr. Roberts.
Or not. On the way, we learn that he's been studying under the director all 3 years so far, and that he had written a book Dr. Roberts read back in med school.
First read his book back in med school.
And he was the reason he went into psychiatry to begin with,
You're in good hands.
as he's had tremendous success with his patients.
I'd like you to meet the head of the clinic, Dr. Hunter Percy.
5 by 5.
Well, maybe if Dr. Roberts isn't Homer, perhaps Dr. Percy isn't Hap?
It is you, isn't it?
Shit.
Hello, Prairie.
It's gonna be an interesting season. So there's a lot going on in this episode. In addition to the introduction of Kareem, this episode also offers the first definitive proof that OA was not lying. Unless we find out that this is all in her head as she lies in a coma back in Michigan. It's fairly clear both Renata and Scott also recognize OA in addition to Hap, so we can assume that they all jumped once Hap got back from ditching OA on the side of the road. If that's the case, then why isn't Dr. Roberts actually Homer? Could Hap have left him behind? If Nina is now OA, is Nina gone completely, or, like her sunglasses, is she half fractured? So far, the season seems to ask more questions than it answers. Speaking of Nina, we can at least piece together a few things about her from this episode alone. First, although she lives in California now, she probably grew up in Russia and moved to America much later in life, hence the accent. She likes expensive and extravagant things and spends extra time on her appearance, ensuring her toenails match her fingernails, for example. When she's experiencing chest pains, her first thought is probably due to the recent losing of her father in a similar manner. Although she has a large, luxurious, and high-tech apartment, she has a lot of reminders of nature all around her. A couple of large trees, birds, fish, tree legs that are just a couple of red boots away from a talking cat territory.
This thing is hideous. What was I thinking?
And an awesome projection of a tree in her hallway. Finally, according to OA's wall notes, Nina lived in Paris at one point. All in all, this episode paints Nina as an interesting character all on her own that gets built upon throughout this season. In addition to her, we also have Kareem and Pierre introduced to this season. This season follows Kareem closely, so we'll learn a lot more about him as we progress. So far, we know he's brutally honest.
You tell him most girls under 18 who go missing for 72 hours and never found again or they're found dead.
But still shows genuine empathy.
Go back upstairs. You'll sleep there, okay?
He'll also do everything in his power to get to the truth. Pierre, on the other hand, is a bit more mysterious. We don't really get much information about him yet, but we know he's involved in something.
I know that you're upset, that you feel betrayed.
He's rich, powerful, famous, and has many ties in technology. He also has an impulsive and/or violent side to him. Although he doesn't get as much development as Kareem, I'm a bit confused as to the subterfuge regarding his appearance. We never get a good look at his face, which I find odd as we've never met this character before, so what would it matter? My only guess as to why they chose to hide his identity is to attempt a bait and switch in getting us to think it's possibly Homer with the similar facial hair. Before I go into anything deeper, there's just a few quick things I'd like to point out. First, the house Michelle was staying in is very reminiscent of the paintings called Empire of Light that I pointed out in my episode on, well, Empire of Light. Speaking of which, there's a detail from that episode that I missed until doing this guide.
So it's the mission. I'm trying to prepare myself for the mission. Where is this?
The mission.
All of part 1 was to prepare her to go to the mission, a hospital in California. I gotta say, kind of anticlimactic. Anyway, another quick thing, Fola's name isn't actually said in this episode at all. The subtitles, however, show it several times, including tacking it onto the end of one of Kareem's sentences as if he did speak it.
How much can you make playing symphony?
Well, there are 5 levels.
Not sure why, but this happens a lot in this show. If you remember back in New Colossus, the same thing happened with Nina's aunt, Zoya, which, ironically, this is the first and only episode where we actually hear her name spoken out loud by any character.
You chose the baby boy from Zoya in Sheepshead Bay.
One final quick tidbit. I think anyone who had to wear some type of name tag to work has experienced the same thing that Dr. Roberts did when OA first used his name. First, confusion. Oh no, do I actually know this person and I just don't remember them? Then, realization. Oh, right, name tag. Yes, OA really does know Homer, but from Dr. Roberts' perspective, he just forgot he had his name tag on. Moving on, there were actually 2 things that I didn't quite understand upon my first viewing. First was Nina's last name. On her license, she's Nina Azarova, but back in part 1, her father's surname was Azarov. Being the naive American that I am, I actually thought it was some type of error. It didn't occur to me that other countries have both a masculine and feminine surname, hence Roman Azarov and Nina Azarova. The second thing was Michelle, the missing girl. Until it was blatantly spelled out for me in the next episode, I genuinely didn't realize that Michelle was Buck. This very well could have been me, as others I've introduced to the show recognized Buck immediately. The next thing I want to touch on is that forced injection at the hospital. Wouldn't that be illegal? I mean, I get that things may be different in their dimension, but it doesn't seem so different that there wouldn't be any adverse reactions to medications. For example, what if someone was allergic to that particular medication? They're literally forcing it into her. It's one thing if someone is unable to communicate and the doctor needs to make a life or death decision, but the patient in this case was awake. I guess a case could be made that she's disoriented, as she didn't know who the president was or what the marks on her arm are, but she clearly was lucid enough to answer all the other questions without pause. It seems to me that if something like that did happen, there could be a pretty big lawsuit. I guess on the flip side, I can somewhat understand why OA didn't really fight the social worker regarding her 14-day hold. I mentioned I would want to call a lawyer before agreeing to anything, but OA probably feels she has no other choice in the matter. I mentioned in my Part 1 reviews that the spoiler sections of my videos would get less and less as we went on. If you haven't seen the rest of the OA and you want absolutely nothing spoiled, close the video now. If you don't mind a couple minor spoilers or you've already watched it all, feel free to continue. You have been warned. First, I just want to touch on the person that points Kareem to Ruskin, the one that...
Because I won the $5 grand for the best carbon panel.
We find out ultimately that Ruskin wants Kareem to find him. It makes me wonder if this woman still works for Ruskin. Was she planted by Ruskin to give Kareem the trail? At this point in his investigation, he's pretty much hit a dead end if he's unable to find out who created this puzzle, so without her, he'd be stabbing around in the dark for a lead. Next, I have a small nitpick regarding Curie. The entrance is on a building labeled C&H Pure Cane Sugar. In future episodes, it's handled as a hush-hush operation, and all participants are told they must sign an NDA. And yes, I almost used NDE by accident in this point. Kareem's friend, someone shown to have decent tech knowledge, even asks him what Curie is. Yet in the interview with Ruskin's right-hand man, Burt Gable, it shows him as the VP of both Ruskin Industries and Curie. Seems a bit weird that a project that no one is supposed to know about is publicly shown in a Yahoo video. Finally, there's flight BA411. This is a real flight number in active service owned by British Airways that flies from Ibiza Airport in Spain to London Heathrow Airport in the UK. It runs 7 days a week and is about 2 hours. Why do I bring any of this up here? Later on, there's a scene inside a plane, and I would honestly be surprised if this is not the same flight. I've got a couple more theories surrounding this, but I'll get to that when the time comes. Wow, what an episode. Way back in Part 1, Episode 1, I mentioned how shows released on a streaming service, such as Netflix, have the advantage of recording an entire season at once, thus effectively eliminating any gap in quality a season opener may have versus the rest of the season. This episode greatly outlines that fact, as the story, writing, and acting is excellent and remains just as good throughout the rest of the season. If you like what I'm doing and you want to see the next episode when I release it, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If you have any follow-up, you can leave a comment down below as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Peace.